So I was watching some YouTube when I came across a video that really stood out to me as a sort of question that I've been pondering with myself. Nepenthez put out a video discussing all his thoughts on whether now is a good time to buy or sell in-season cards on Sorare. And typically Nepenthez makes some great content across Sorare and FIFA, and I thought, yeah, that is a sort of video that really appeals to me. And throughout the video, I really can't do it. It's like a 28-minute video. I can't really do it justice. But he plays with a couple of different concepts about like, well, if you buy now, you can buy some big hitters. But if you're putting them in his stacks, you're going to fall to all the other players on the team. You know, in terms of what your outlay is on that card, it doesn't seem too difficult to win it back, especially if you're competing in, you know, the top division, which we both are. And ultimately, he didn't really conclude an answer on should he be buying, should he be selling. So I have to make my own conclusions, which of course I had already done. So I've done some data to sort of back it up, and that's, again, just my thoughts and opinions. The best part about Sorare this year is it is a brand new system. No one knows the answers. It is giving you that sort of like, what are we supposed to do? Where previously you just buy your cards, you run them out forever. So I do think this is another benefit of Sorare 2.0. But realistically, I just want to show you my point of view and what I've been doing on my Sorare journey. So thank you for watching. The best way for me to explain this is to simply look at my own situation. So if you're looking at it, you can see a couple of options here. I think the best part about my Sorare journey compared to everyone else's is I collect probably a lot more data because I am sad and I do take this far too seriously. But recently I've got a great array of players. You know, I've got depth in multiple positions. I don't have typically your best player in each position. I probably do up front, but I don't think Declan Rice is the best midfielder. I don't think Lewis Hall's the best midfielder. But on their day, they rock and roll with the best of them, which is the best part. Matt Sales, I like to put them in order of strength. Matt Sales need to go right up there, and poor Fraser Foster has probably lost his job. So that is me screwed once again. And looking at it, you can see that ultimately I've been making consistent purchases of players I need in smart positions, or, you know, I've not just been going out and spending for the sake of it. I'm looking at weaknesses. I'm trying to pinpoint them. I'm trying to find value, which was my last Sorare Journey video. So ultimately, I'm at this point where I have this massive hole in my striker position because Saka, one of the best players on the game, if not the best player in the Premier League for Sorare terms, injured out for a while, which leaves me with Palmer, fantastic choice. Salah, who works, but we'll talk about why he doesn't shortly. Johnson, who just doesn't work. Jota, who's injured, returning, lost his spot. And Semenyo, who isn't a Division 1 player. So great, I had some teams in lower divisions, but now I'm out of those. Maybe it's not, you know, exactly a player that I need. So I'm looking at it, and I need to strengthen that position. Because what I'm talking about Salah is, if you look to my recent weeks, I can put them together in my Division 1 team, but then I'm playing Semenyo, who's not a Division 1 or a Division 2 type player in Division 2. So ultimately, I'm just playing one team. I know that second team isn't really going to win a reward. Now, it didn't get too far away this week, but, you know, life goes on. Alternatively, and I will get to whether this is good or bad for selling, I promise. Alternatively, you do what I did the week before, and you split them up. So I'm playing two great Division 1 teams, but I've significantly weakened them. I swapped Kai Havertz for Saka and Alisson for Sales. Now, I won no rewards this week. I got a promotion on one of them, which was nice. But if I had swapped Salah, Havertz, Sales and Alisson, I would be on for a ridiculous prize. Serious cash. I mean, how many? I can't be asked to work it out, but it's probably $200 to $400 worth. So I'm looking at it. And as a player of the game, I desperately need a forward. A strong forward, but keep in mind Saka will be back soon, and I can't have three of the best strikers. Well, I can't have four of the best forwards in the Premier League in one team because they'll always be wasted. So, back to the point. Why would I spend the price of cards now when I could have bought them in September for roughly the same price? The market has stayed very stable across most of the cards. Now, it's tough to say exactly because rare, there's not an auction every day. Now in limited, you can probably paint a better picture for this. But if you're looking to buy Cole Palmer, he's still £800. 6 months ago, yeah, he peaked at 1,100, but you could have picked him up for £800, exactly the same price. And that's not just the same. Now, obviously, you know, everyone expected Palmer to have a good season. Salah, I don't know, I was probably the only person on the planet that didn't think he'd have a good season. Thankfully, I didn't sell mine. Now, he might have crept up in value. Yeah, I wouldn't even crept. He's like doubled in price. So, as a player, I'm at this position now where I'm looking at the best, in-form forward on the game. And if I was to buy him, I'm paying more than I should have. But ultimately, that really doesn't matter. What matters is what you can return for your outlay. And that hasn't really changed. Sort of. Now, in the Premier League season, I think we are 20 games through the season. So that gives you 20 of the possible 38 games. So your utility has been halved. And Salah's price has doubled, roughly. So, does it make sense to go out and buy a Salah? Well, of course, that depends on your own situation. If I'm putting in with, Cole Palmer or, some of the best players on the game, one win, and I'll return 4x Salah's price, which is another point Nepenthez touched on. You can go out and spend £100 on a card, you can get them back in a week. So, we get to this point of, well, why is the prices so high? Will they crash? When will they crash? Now, I think everyone on the game has the same philosophy as me, that these in-season cards will come to the price of out-of-season cards. That's pretty natural. It happens, effectively what you win can change. Now, there could be situations where different things happen. Maybe the price of out-of-season goes to in-season if the prize pool for next year is doubled, anything like that. Am I expecting it? No. So if we expect things to stay roughly as they are, now I'm making this a day before a change, nice one, good job, but I can make a separate video on the changes later. Looking at this, you would still say that you're expecting Salah to drop last sale 644, let's call it a £300 drop, a half price drop. And the pinpoint for this is, when does that happen? Because another point that Nep was looking at, which I really liked, was he was just looking at fixtures. And he's an Arsenal fan, so he's looking at Arsenal fixtures. And I think towards the end of the season here, you can show that, like, a couple of games, like Southampton, Southampton last game of the season, for example, Arsenal should batter them. So with a stack, Southampton will probably be relegated by then. With an Arsenal stack or with Arsenal players, you'd really want them going into the last game. So it would be an awful time to sell. And it's not just fixture based, it's you always have that ability to return on your cards. Now, if you've watched my Sorare economics video, it should be pretty much a straight line down from, as every week goes on, your ability to return on that card gets less and less and less because there's less game weeks. Football, luck, all the rest of it happens to where, all things being equal, it should drop, week by week. But we haven't seen that happen, and we haven't seen it happen yet. And there's plenty of different scenarios where if over time a straight line should happen in free markets, which Sorare is, it can drop drastically, then rise drastically, then drop drastically, or any different combination where these cards could merge into the price of out-of-season cards tomorrow. And if that happens, all that means is they're good value. Good value for players that can be expected to win. Doesn't mean they should be any higher, doesn't mean they should be any lower. And the other part that I haven't even mentioned yet, when we're talking about these out-of-season cards, we need to be talking about the price of those. Because we're looking at the price today, which is not the price tomorrow. So that differentiation in price is going to be based on, how many people are playing Sorare, how many new users join, how many current users want to spend more money, the sentiment on the game, all those factors which are unknown and probably might be known a little bit better by Sorare's big announcement tomorrow. But ultimately, you're trying to predict all of that, and you have no data on that. It's all who knows. So I went to data that we do have to try and make maybe not a best estimate, but you can read a little bit more into it. And actually, this next sentence, I didn't think I would be saying on Sorare. I'm not sure if I've ever said it. There is a supply shortage. Yeah. So after all this, too many cards, where I'm looking and where I need strength, in rare, decent quality players, there's a shortage. So I'm going to pull up some of this data that I've been pulling out of Sorare data. Now, it should be pretty accurate, but Sorare Supply, they have actually spent 90% of their supply already. Now, typically, Sorare don't even mint the full supply of cards. They try and, protect the market as much as possible. So, this 90% or whatever, each card is at, that could be their maximum supply. So, if you're looking at that and you're looking at the ability to earn, it doesn't matter that you have, half of the seasons left, because you have none of the supply left. So when I'm looking to buy a card, I really have no other option except the maximum supply. Now, the other option is rewards from out of season, in-season rewards in the out-of-season competitions. But the problem there is, A, they're very high as well, a maximum supply of 74%. But they also need to have them every single week. So they would be drip fed into the market. So when we're looking at something I kind of touched on already here, the average prices, each card's going to be different. Palmer, maximum price sold for £1,100, minimum 577, which was maybe a little bit dodgy. I don't know what happened there. It seemed very low for someone that hasn't had an injury. But anyway, his average price is about 805 and his last sale is 834. So when you're looking at that and you're thinking, is it worth the buy with half the time left? Because just because it was just because it's, the same price or double the price or half the price, that doesn't really matter, because that could have just meant the person in September or whatever price they got just got a good deal. So the supply shortage, when you look across all of the different players here, is pretty, prevalent. Sorare have minted 93 to 95%, and I did this analysis a week ago. This could be, maximum, this could be their absolute maximum for Van Dijk now. They probably not, but it all depends on instant buys and auction rates and all the rest of it. But the market is very, very healthy, considering sometime between today and end of July, there should be a drop in prices of probably half. So then I think you actually need to assess the cards on their own individual merit, because yes, the market's healthy, and yes, you have less time to yield your return on them, but it also depends on that individual player's future expected scores and your ability to put them in a team that's winnable or can, yield actual returns. So if we look at Saka, for example, he's a difficult one because he is injured, so you do need a bit of that extra, like, I predict he'll be back here and Arteta's not lying and everything else. He's actually a bit short on supply. He's actually got a bit more capacity of supply compared to the rest of the list, probably because he's injured and they didn't want to tank his price. But there was a couple panic sellers. 381 someone actually sold him for, average 966. So the last sale was 381. I did see him about 450. If I knew they're selling for 381, I would have bought it, but whatever. If you're looking at his average price for the year, and he's 39% of that, with probably 2 months of fixtures left for one of the best cards in the game, that's probably a time you should not be selling your in-season cards. However, if you go down the list, and instead of looking at Saka, you look at Isak, well then it's a much harder case to say this is a player to buy. In fact, I think it flips the other way to this is a player to sell. And that's really tough for me to sell because I have a Newcastle stack. I get 2 or 3% on them. So to miss the main man, not good. But anyway, his maximum sale 571, minimum 134. He averages £294 for his rare card. And recently it's up 113%. So if we look at this, now keep in mind this was a week ago, I probably extracted all these actual data points. He's now a little bit injured. I think he's expected to be back anyway. But if you're looking at it, you have that ability of, do I want to pay like that much money for someone that, yes, is in form, and of course their price is driven by how in form they are, but over a long term is going to be more difficult than, say, a Salah to yield rewards? Because let's not forget, the teams that they've been playing, Man United are in awful form. Villa are in awful form. Ipswich, bottom of the league-ish. Leicester, bottom of the league-ish. He's on definitely good form, but they've also had some easy fixtures. To be fair, they've got some easier ones coming up as well. Wolves, Bournemouth, Southampton. So Bournemouth are quite good. But anyway, beyond that, City, Forest, it started to get a bit harder. My point is, I think it's not so much a should I buy or sell, every card. Every individual card sort of needs to be assessed on its own basis. Remembering that Sorare is pretty much at their maximum supply. They may drip feed one or two more, but the only supply you're getting is from other Sorare users. Now, it's tough to say what these users are like, to put a broad statement and say classic season winners will sell cards or classic season winners will hold the cards. But what I have seen across most of the history of Sorare, people do not like to sell for lower than the last sale without some particular news that makes it good or bad, which I know is a blanket statement, but I've seen a lot of it. My point is that if Isaac's last sale was, and I probably switch between Isaac and Isaac, and I know one of them's right and one of them's wrong, but not a lot I can do about it. I'm a numbers man. 326 people will be looking at that, even in March, even in April time, and demanding that price. Because the price discovery actually comes from the auctions and from those instant buys. As soon as someone sees, people selling around that price, they're happy to sell around that price. And this is the big problem I have, where there is a supply shortage. We know it's going to halve, but it depends on each individual player and your ability to put them together. Because the part I haven't even discussed is at the start of the year, for me, I was in Division 2, Division 3, and Division 4 or Division 3 of my Premier League team. So my return was based on that. Now, I have much more depth, and I have, what was it in the last game week? I had a Division 1 team, a Division 2, and a Division 1 team I didn't play for strategic reasons. So my teams are a lot higher up. My depth is a lot better. And the competition I'm playing is relatively the same. Now, the leaderboard is only, the top 25%? But you're paying 174 people in Division 1. That's probably not grown significantly from the start of the season. The only thing that will have grown significantly is people doing the same as me, trying to accumulate as many cards to have depth options and to put out 2-3 teams in Division 1. So, we go back to my specific problem of needing a striker, or a forward I should say, and I get rid of all my changes, but effectively, you need to refresh here, I should have a new player. Heung-min Son. Now, that is a questionable acquisition from any football fan. Son's looking a little bit, I wouldn't say past it, but past his best. Spurs, hit, miss, just so unpredictable. He's been dropped for Werner. So many question marks. But then I come back to my original point where how much discount am I getting on him? His last sale was 291. He averages 452. I got my Son. I got him for about £162. Now, I actually rejected this offer and sent Matoma just because I don't need any more classic season Premier League cards, especially in midfield. So, for about that much, if we compare him to now, I'm getting 35% of his average cost. Now, I'm not doubting the fact that he has dropped in favourability, or let's say rankings. He's dropped in rankings in top of where is he ranking in the top forwards in the game. But with a supply shortage, now keep in mind I was looking at his specific numbers, 88% of Sorare supply is gone, 70% of the entire market's gone. And if you're looking at Premier League forwards, for the last 40 average, which is always my favourite long term, he's still 5th. He is still 5th place. So, for me, in-season cards come down to you and your player. Son, for me, works perfectly. He's a top quality card that can perform on his day. He slots in for Saka, but I know he's not Saka. So that enables me to stop the problem I was speaking about at the start of the video, which seemed completely irrelevant at the time. But now I can play Salah and Palmer in the same team if I needed to. Now in this case, there'll probably be loads of you yelling at me to put him in the team, but I prefer Rice. I might change that. I haven't assessed them. But anyway, Son allows me to have a top quality player for a non-top quality price at the point where, you know, I put up the most average return, was it last week or the week before? You know, 391 points. I suppose it's not awful, but I came 18th, won $200. I won more than Son. Because the other factor, which I know I touch on each and every episode at the minute, but it's so key. There's 20 games in the Premier League season that have gone, right? Let me double check that before someone yells. Yeah, 20 for every team except for Everton and Liverpool because of that cancelled game. And in that time, I've returned 78% of my cost, including the Son purchase, including an Odsonne Edouard purchase, just because I'm a Celtic fan and he was £1. And the other part is that you're looking at the return here across the entire season, but a lot of these cards were purchased just recently. Like Son 4 days ago. Couple of more Celtic purchases and Celtic transfers. Szoboszlai 22 days ago. Tielemans 22 days ago. Robinson 30. Jota 30. Like, a lot of those returns they haven't had a chance to yield. They've only had 1, 2, 3 Premier League fixtures. But still, we're at the stage where, whether it's me or whether it's just the competition or whatever, it seems to be not easy. It's not, I'm looking for a better word than easy. It's attainable. There is attainable rewards for those that, you know, look for value, do, you know, put decent outlays of cash in. I'm not saying £5,000 isn't a big outlay, but in limited, for 1/10 of the price, 500 quid across a year, 2, 3, 4 if you want to include classic season returns, which I absolutely think you should. I would not be looking to sell the majority of my gallery, but I would be looking to maybe take advantage of a rising price like an Isak. But the other problem, which Nepenthez was very hot on, is the fact you need to be sharp on your collections. Because there's no point going... It's not no point, but you're playing with one hand tied behind your back if you go and get Heung-min Son for a great price and everyone else that's got him has him on... What do I have him on? 10.5%, I think it is. 10.5%. Because you need to take advantage of collections. Now, he also mentions XP in terms of how long you've held them, and I completely agree. But, like, I wouldn't say you have to just go out and get older cards. You want older cards and you want collection. But if you can just do one, picking up, 2% on a collection is so easy. Like, I've done it in 5 cards from Newcastle just because I got them from the, primary market. Now, it gets a little bit harder if there is a shortage of supply, which again drives some of the prices up. So ultimately, for me, the market's looking really, really healthy. I think now is a great time to acquire specific cards. If you aren't able to yield from them, if you're looking at your performance and it's not good, and, say this number here is 20%, perfect time to sell. So it depends on your own situation, which I know is a bit like naff, but hopefully I've explained it enough to the point of like, it really does depend on your own situation, because the exact same card could be a buy or a sell based on how well you're doing. And one thing I do not get to discuss enough on this channel is my actual strategic decision making for every lineup. Now, my free teams I never care about. I pretty much put in players that I don't own just in case they smash that I kind of want to own. But yeah, that's just beside the point, really. Now, this Division 1 team is going to be make or break for me. I have a problem where my best other player, Salah, is playing my best other defender. But if I was to put Salah in here, which is probably the smart option, I seriously, why does the search not work anymore? It really rattles me. They've broken it somehow. But the problem I have is every single week on Sorare, your best option is to put your 5 best cards together. And for years now, I prefer to put 10 good cards together rather than 5 great cards. And I might do the same again. And this is a perfect example. Right, that would be probably appeasing to everyone. Maybe you captain Salah, don't care, doesn't matter. But now, I would need to bring in Son into this team, and it significantly weakens it. Now, I can bring in, who would I chop here? Probably Havertz for a midfielder. I don't really have a great midfielder, that's classic. But effectively, I've weakened a Division 1 team, a seriously decent Division 1 team, to make the other Division 1 team better. Am I stupid? I much prefer Decky Rice here, and it feels more comfortable to me, and Salah captain the other team. But then he's playing my goalkeeper, so we can't really rip a score. Havertz will get changed, I think, watching him in the FA Cup. He's not the guy for this job. But ultimately, what's Dallo doing on 0%? Is he suspended as well? I mean, I know he got red carded. He is! He's not. The cut-off point has already happened for 5 yellows. Okay. Anyway, the point I want to look at is strategically the team. So that's my first issue. Do you weaken one team to make the other team better when they're in exactly the same competition, which I've never really had happen until 2 weeks ago, and I screwed myself, and I'm currently making the same mistake. Because the next week I fixed it and won $200. So I know the answer. It's just whether I can actually bring myself to do it. Because Decky Rice, he's naughty with decisive actions. Like he whips in a naughty ball, and Salah's playing my keeper and Forrest are good. I can't decide. But looking at this team, Dubravka's expected to start and stay now, which is good. Lewis Hall, underrated SO5 monster. Think he takes a couple of set pieces. In fact, I know he does. He plays quite attacking. I saw, I think Hatton is the expert on Play Sharper here, and he was discussing something I really liked. Yeah, Hatton 90, one of the favourites of the channel. He was saying they could shift to a back 3. Yeah, here it is. Or maybe a free centre-back formation with Lewis Hall playing left wing-back. Now, if you're playing left wing-back against a weaker opposition that you expect to dominate and beat, that's when you're getting passes into the final third. You're getting big chances created. You're getting attempted assists, which rocket defenders' scores up. So that's huge. Bruno Guimaraes is one of those players that puts up a 60-ish score every game, gets to decisive. You're looking at 80s, 90s, even 100 sometimes. So that is just a locked-in position for me. Palmer, you might look at and think you've probably overestimated how much Chelsea are going to beat Bournemouth. But one of my key metrics on Sorare, every time they start, whether they're home or away, let's look at their average scores. He averages 74. That's the best in the Premier League probably, even with Salah's ridiculous form. Yes, I want you to drill into these fixtures and say, okay, who's similar strength? Probably Brentford, 62 without a decisive. Weaker opposite. One key metric for the team he plays for. Chelsea, 74, so that's going to get rid of it. Yeah, 77! A 77 average. I don't know how I can't give him the armband here. But effectively, yeah, weaker scores against Arsenal, Man City, Tottenham. It makes perfect sense to captain Palmer here. I would captain him over Salah 9 times out of 10. 100 times out of 10. I've butchered that. 10 times out of 10. Now, you can see if I'm an idiot, but this is a strategic decision making that has worked for me all season. It's underlying stats with fixture strength and probability and putting my own sort of nuance to it of, bookies say this, I think this. I don't really use Sorare data anymore for lineup building. I think it's too simple at times, and also it helps you pick teams no one's going to pick. Lots of people just run out whoever has the most AAs or triple A's or whatever. Probably no one will have that team in Division 1. So if they do well, I'm going to win. I don't need to worry about having someone having a better stack than me or something like that. But Rice, set pieces, might take... I thought he might take more set pieces with Saka gone, but it seems to be based on the corner position. They like to whip the balls in every time or out every time, can't remember which one, but effectively he doesn't take them from the other side that often. So yeah, I should probably drop him for Salah. I just can't bring myself to do it yet. Timber is one of those underrated players where if you're playing a weaker opposition, Jury and Timber's actually a very, very solid option. I know his averages aren't great, but again, if you look at, every time he started, home or away, 50 average, not very good. But when you drill into the weaker oppositions, home to Ipswich, 87. Nottingham Forest, that's not an easy opposition, but he got 61 anyway. Sporting away, that's a tough fixture. Leicester put up 100. Leicester was when I found that out pretty much. That it's obvious he's a wing back. He gets in the box, takes shots, can get headers. But, like I said before, big chances created, passes into the final third. They rocket defender scores, and Timber's no exception to that. He's almost a perfect example. Like Pedro Porro, you will notice every one of my defender selections, except for Romero, is pretty much like that. Wing back, wing back, wing back, wing back, or at least an attacking right back, left back, because their scores are predictable. And if I do want one quote, I love how much of you viewers are still watching me to learn when it hasn't been my top priority to make content on the Sorare channel throughout the last 2 years. Some of you still try and learn off me, and I really appreciate that. And my quote would be, it's not about having a player that scores well, it's about knowing when your player will score well. Because someone putting up 100 against the best team in the league probably is not great because you'll have them in training or your weakest team. That's why I love Saka, Palmer. They're getting you 60 no matter what. If they get decisive, you know what they're going to do. So there's a little bit of strategic analysis, which I don't really get to do too much of. Bit of underlying stats. But ultimately, is now the time to sell? You tell me. It's on your own gallery. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe if you enjoyed this for more. All the best.